good to be here. Is this on? Excellent. Sorry. There we go. How's that? All right. I just wanted to share a little bit about myself, and thank you so much for having me here. This is my third chapter. My first chapter was the U.S. Air Force for a number of years. Second chapter was corporate America for nearly 30 years, where I helped the Fortune 1000 for almost 17 years and the Fortune 500 for just under 12 years. Pretty much helped them when it came to their sales teams. I ran very, very large sales teams, and I was a turnaround specialist. And I retired in January of 2019, and I entered this third chapter, which I consider to be my portfolio career. And in this portfolio career, it's really all around governance. I started out with a floodlight type approach. Then I moved to a spotlight, and now I'm more laser focused. And I'm laser focused in helping corporate boards do things differently. Private and public corporate boards do things differently to get different results in this dynamic world. And to help executives do things differently to present themselves to get on corporate boards and help make a difference in this world. This chapter for me is about making a difference and helping others make a difference. And that's why I'm here. And so when I think about the people that are in this room and really analyzing and looking at your backgrounds, it really comes down to we have a bunch of leaders in this room, entrepreneurs, executives. We have a chief in this room. We have government officials. We have educators. And when I think about all of you, and where you are in your career today, just with a quick show of hands, how many of you would like to make a difference in your communities by serving on a private or public corporate board where you're paid to serve? Quick show of hands. Just wanted to get a feel for who I'm working with here. And my goal here is to help you do that. As someone mentioned, Mark mentioned earlier today, that there are hundreds of thousands of businesses out there. Every single public corporation has to have a board, and they're required to have boards, and they're actually required to have what we call independent directors, people who aren't employees of that company come in and help govern them. And then most private companies are required to have boards. And with private companies, you have family businesses and so on and so forth. Not all of them have boards, but most are really have boards. So you have many of people just like you that are actually interested in getting on boards, but there aren't enough board seats to support everyone who wants to get on a board. So today in this masterclass is about giving you a hack to better position yourself to get on boards, okay? And so when you think about that, I'm going to share a couple of strategies with you. But before I get into the strategy, I want you to spend a little bit of time just reflecting. For those of you that raised your hand and said that you would like to be on a paid private or public corporate board, I want you to reflect as to why. What's your why? Why is that important to you? Some people, as I'm a managing partner and a practice leader of CEO and board services in this chapter at a global executive search firm. And so people often approach me and say, Keith, I don't care what kind of board I'm on as long as I'm getting paid. Well, that's not going to be a good enough reason to actually have you get there. And so I want you to reflect on your why. Why is that important to you? Then your purpose. As executives, we often have to, for the corporation, come up with the corporation's vision, mission, and values. We're good at that. We've done it for many organizations. Now I'm going to ask you to do that for yourself. Come up with your personal vision, mission, and value. And basically get to figure out what makes you tick. I also want you to close your eyes and think about what brings you joy in this world? Because life's short. Tomorrow's not promised to any of us. And if you're going to move into this next level where you're really paying things forward, taking your human capital and all your experience that you have gained over the years and education you gained over the years, and taking your social capital, all the relationships you created over the years, and you're going to utilize that to pay it forward for a corporation. I'm asking you to actually really reflect on that and create your own personal vision, mission, and values, and really narrow your focus as to the type of board that you want, the industry that you want, that's going to bring you a lot of joy in this world and where you believe you can actually add value. So first stage and the first step in securing a board seat is to demonstrate your ability to add value. And to do that, you have to understand what a board member's role is when they do serve on a corporate board. There are 3 areas of focus. One is management. Management is the hiring and firing of the CEO. The CEO of that company, he or she actually has a boss, and that's the corporate board. The other one is service and advisory. One of your roles on the board is to be able to challenge thought processes, ask questions and give advice. And so you're bringing your human capital and your experience. You're able to ask questions so that they can see around the corner, because guess what? You've been there before. You know what type of things they may experience, and your job is not to tell them what to do, but to ask the thought-provoking questions to get that, so that the CEO and the rest of his or her management team gets a better feel for how to mitigate risk, how to disrupt themselves, and how to find blue oceans. That's the advisory side of being a corporate board member. And then the last and final side that we hear so much about is the oversight, the governance, that really stop them from hurting themselves. And those are the 3 areas. And then, as I mentioned before, understand the industry that you want to be in. Many people say, I've worked in many different industries, Keith, and so I'm agnostic. Well, you're competing against people who may have only been in that one industry. And so why should they pick you, who is agnostic, versus the person who can dive deep? Figure out the industry that brings you the most joy and narrow your focus to that. Know what you're seeking and why you're seeking it, and know what's going on in that company. Look at the board members who are already serving on the type of companies that you want to serve on. Look at their competencies. Look at their skill sets. Think about the strategy of the company moving forward, and do your research to figure out where you can add value. Where does that company on their board today have redundancies and skill sets and competencies? And where do they have gaps? And how can you fill those gaps? If you go in with that value prop as to how you could fill the gap by showing your human capital and social capital, you increase your chances of actually getting on that board. You're competing with a lot of people. Why should I choose you as a search professional over someone else? So that's the first strategy. The second strategy is to gain board exposure. Understand the many different types of boards that are out there and how to gain and get experience from those boards. The first one might be a nonprofit or a not-for-profit, but pick the right sort of not-for-profit to get, or nonprofit to get experience. Pick one where you have fiduciary experience. There are a lot of nonprofits and not-for-profits out there, and some only want your money. Some only want you to raise money for them, but you can't hire or fire that executive director or CEO. To gain experience that corporate boards would be interested in, you need to be in a fiduciary nonprofit where you can hire and fire the executive director, and you can actually help them really grow with oversight as well. When you get into private and public corporate boards, there are many different types of private boards. There are family-owned private boards that we heard a lot about earlier today. There are venture capitalists funded private boards. That's when you're just starting out your business and you're getting external money. You have PE-backed or private equity-backed private firms where you're moving from $1 million to 10 million to 100 million, and they're there to help you and give you additional funds. Then you have public companies. These public companies that you're actually working with you have small cap, mid cap, large cap. Now, earlier I mentioned the 3 areas as a board member that you truly have to focus your time on: management, advisory, and oversight. Well, when you're with a family business or a small startup, the majority of your time is going to be around advisory. They need your help. You can see around the corner. Conversely, if you're with a large cap public company, the amount of time that you spend on advisory is very little. Most of your time is on oversight. You have to know what brings you joy. If you are excited about oversight, then public company might make more sense. If you're excited about advisory, then a private company may make more sense. But you have to know what makes you tick in order to move forward. Moving on to the 3rd step here, I'm going to say be your own best advocate. When it comes to board service, you need to let anyone and everyone know you're interested in being on a board. In our society today, you go to a cocktail party, someone asks you what you do for a living, you quickly tell them in an autopilot sort of way that I work at this company. And that's not going to help you get on the board. But if you incorporate an additional 7 to 11 seconds to your autopilot sort of speech about who you are and what you do, and say, and I serve on X board and Y board, and I'm looking to pay things forward by serving on one more private company board in this industry. Because the way that people get on boards isn't always with a search professional like myself. 75% of the board seats are found by the people you know, and when they know you're interested in the board and understand the value that you could bring to a board, that's how the majority of the people get on boards. It's the babysitter that you mentioned, that you told you want to get on a board, and they mentioned it to their parents. And the parents said, we're looking for a board member with that background. It's the janitor who picked up your trash can while you were working late at night, and they said, why are you here so often, and what do you do? And you incorporated 7 more seconds and said, I serve on this nonprofit, and I'm looking for a private company board. And at the dinner party that next week, at his sister said, we're having the hardest time finding a board member. I want to introduce you to someone I met at my office. That's how people get on boards. Tell anyone and everyone you would like to get on a board. And lastly, the 4th strategy there is to build and nurture your network. We've heard 6 degrees of separation. Well, the fact that we have programs like LinkedIn out there today, there are no longer 6 degrees of separation. When it comes to board service, a board is going to find you via the people who know you or you know. And search professionals are going to find you for those same ways. And so we are only just 2 degrees of separation from getting good information. So we're going to pre-vet you. We're going to ask a bunch of people who know you about you, and if they have positive things to say about you, we're going to knock on your door. If they have negative things to say about you, you're never going to hear from us. And so I tell people to expose themselves as much as they possibly can and speak in front of groups like you are today as much as you possibly can, because you may be in front of a group of 1,000 people and you may know 30 people in the audience, but guess what? By the time you're done, there are 970 more people who know you. And the saying that we all grew up with is, it's not what you know, it's who you know, and that's no longer true. It's not what you know, it's not who you know, it's who knows you. And if you let anyone and everyone know that you're interested in serving on a corporate board, and you can succinctly tell them what type of corporate board you're interested in, why and how you're going to add value, in that example of 1,000 people in the audience where you knew 30, 970 more people know you, and they're talking about you. And because of that, you may get your opportunity to serve on a corporate board. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Dr. Dorsey, thank you very much, sir.